for people of my generation to not only know history, but to also experience it and allow it to change them. I have so much respect and so much to learn from these people that came before me. I mean, the people are great people, not just great musicians. I think that's what I'll carry with me, is just being able to converse and talk to people who have done so much to influence what I do and what I want to be. The people bring the place alive, and I think that's very important. Hitsville wasn't this building, it was the people that were in the building, and I think that's been made very clear.
Microphones out to the new Chit Chat Lounge located at 8235 12th Street at Virginia Park, where we present again Operation Jazz. Terrell, and Steve, we're at the Chit Chat Lounge right now, and what a crowd we have here. We'll be presenting the James Jamerson Quartet, plus our little jam session and guest artists who will be popping in. So come on by. We still have a few more chairs, a few more seats, I should say, and join in on the fun. And now the James Jamerson Quartet gets things underway nicely.
Joe.
I played at a talent show. Harry was also in the talent show. My dad came and he said, "You should jam with him." And I'm like, "No, what? No." We just started writing. It took a long time to feel like we were doing something good that we could actually be proud of.
Let's take you to Oregon now, where armed protesters have taken over the headquarters of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge.
Some protesters blame the Harney County Sheriff for not protecting the residents from the federal government.
And let's just say they're not ruling out violence if police try to remove them from the federal premises.
You know, they say that there was an armed standoff in Harney County. That is a total lie.
Militia groups from out of state came to show support for two Oregon ranchers who must go back to prison for starting fires that burned on federal land.
What Dwight and Steve did isn't in the same category as arson.
I don't know how you could put a charge like terrorism and compare that to ranch life in Eastern Oregon.
They flat out told me, "You tell the federal government these people are not going back to prison, or we're going to bring thousands of people to town and do that for you."
There becomes a time when people are ignored. They see an injustice, but all levels of government are ignoring that.
People started approaching me going, "Hey, Emma's going out the refuge. He says he's going to take it over."
You cannot go to war against the federal government. This is not 240 years ago.
If the FBI did come here, nobody would be leaving alive.
Call me an occupier, call me a terrorist, I don't care. I am here for Dwight Hammond, and they had better get out of that prison. The overall majority of this movement is peaceful, but there are extremely dangerous threads which, when the time comes, will yield towards confrontation as opposed to reason.
Quiet on Sam. So speaking. Rolling.
Here we go, and action.
You are my wingman. And if you ask me, it's a hell of a lot better than doing a stint for accessory to murder charge.
This year there's different actors and actresses that have come in. They're all phenomenal. I've worked with all of them and they've really brought it.
You listening to me? Yes, sir. Yeah.
We have our strongest cast of actors that we've ever had, which I think is fitting for the final season of the show.
How long is this going to go on for?
Am I sensing a little resistance here? Oaks, he's the guy that you meet at a bar like this. He's the guy you'd have a beer with and you want to have 10 beers with him. He's gregarious, outgoing, fun. Then he kills you at the end of those beers.
Oaks is a blast. He is a corrupt cop with a capital C, and he loves every minute of it.
Really? Really? That hurts my feelings.
Two of us is really yin and yang. He's a motor mouth talker, loves to hear himself, and Ethan's a little bit more calculated.
Really look at it. Examine it.
It's a very odd relationship that works.
What does Oaks have on you?
That's between him and I.
Okay.
Megan's character is a very dedicated San Francisco detective. She's probably the closest thing Rogue's ever had to a noble character. She's good police.
So now you're harassing for my help.
We can work in our advantage.
When these two characters finally meet and start working together, you see that they're connected not by romance, but just by respect for each other, which I find really original.
Megan, she's got great energy. She comes on set and she really brings it. And for someone who's tiny in stature, she's big on the screen.
Tell her you should be keeping me alive. At least for now. She cares about finding out the truth. And to get that truth, she does a lot of things that jeopardize her job and her relationships and her life.
Teresa Archer is the CEO of Umbrella Group, management consultants.
Ethan eventually falls into this trap of the government.
You want to work for me?
Yes, ma'am.
She's a pretty complicated villain in that she does all kinds of things that morally most people would find reprehensible.
No, there's no such thing as too far.
And this season we get to learn how Ethan Kelly is embroiled in that. I stuck my neck out for you. And perhaps this has been at the root of all of the years that we've been following Ethan Kelly.
I knew Kelly would prove useful. Now he's outlived his usefulness. Sell short.
What's amazing to see other actors that come in from different shows or doing film is the freedom that Matthew gives them to really play.
Who else have I told about everything I felt?
It feels very collaborative. It's nice to discover different parts of myself, and I find that really happens on a show like this.
I think this is an incredibly well thought out, compelling puzzle.
It was fantastic, and I can't wait to watch it, all of it. You're my good luck charm now. And if you do real good, ice cream after.
Rogue, the final season. All new episodes, Wednesdays at 9. Only on Audience.
Well, I've been in a lot of rooms where it's very clear I'm not supposed to be there. You know, like when you're at that party and someone say, hey, you know that band? And you want to go, yeah, of course I know that band. Say no. Tell me about them. When you do that, you actually make a connection with the person. When you have the responsibility of telling someone's life story, you want to get things right. It's not about all of the things that you've done. What's next?
If it's in your blood, it's in your blood.
I don't know that you ever stop evolving.
Pilot, stand by, please. Here we come.
I'm just deciding which dark secret to reveal first.
Fearless is about teaching people to fear less and really making the point that the people they might put on a pedestal, they don't succeed because they don't have fear. They succeed because they've learned how to manage their weaknesses, how to manage their fears, and how to capitalize on maybe one or two key strengths.
What the turning point for me with bombing was, I remember one time just being on stage and I was bombing, and I just pictured all my friends watching me, laughing at me in the back, and then that got me a laugh at myself. I wouldn't say I'm fearless, I just try to be funny. I'm not that deep.
Do you want to do this instead of me?
I'm not. I
Nice sneaker.
As far as long-form, dense, tactical interviews go, this is about as entertaining as it can get, while focusing on making it usable.
Don't be afraid to try crazy things.
I thoroughly enjoyed the format, and the audience component was a great idea.
Be in a position where you have thought of everything, but don't let any of that slow you down.
Tim had a lot of penetrating questions, quite a few of which I have never heard before.
I think the show in a number of practical ways will help people to overcome their fears by helping them to define their fears.
I just vowed on that I will never make another note of music that I don't believe in with all my heart.
The most successful people you can imagine have many different flaws. Therefore, none of those things are fatal flaws in you yourself.
School was just hard for me in general because I just hadn't developed good social skills.
There's no magic to it. Part of my goal is really to just go behind the scenes with these people, dig into their brain, and get the specifics.
The people that are watching have a deeper sense of how they can pursue what matters most to them. To love deeply, to care, to have a life that has meaning, and maybe pursue the path of mastery.
5, 4, 3, 2... What makes this show different, it's not just the highlight reels, is a real focus on obstacles, struggles, challenges.
So the same lessons you're going to go and learn there, the things that are going to help you in business.
People that are going through things, watching us that are like way harder than stuff that I've ever had to go and face. And I hope it helps them in some way.
Looking at how all of us as humans, as imperfect creatures, can carve our own paths.
So after, a couple hard years and running through millions of dollars, and a lot of it is my own money, we had to go out of business. So we have the first roadkill story.
It was fun to kind of talk about the breadth of my entrepreneurial life and not just focus on like the last 10 years of Tom's.
We can use key photographs. We can do research and pull up videos that perhaps the guests themselves they haven't seen in 10, 20 years.
Tim did a ton of research. I was pretty amazed. There were stories I didn't even know that I ever told anybody. Maybe he had one of his hacker friends go into my phone, listen to my conversations.
No matter where you are, no matter what your jobs, no matter what your obligations, there are things that you can borrow from these people.
I think of it as a pyramid. First, I have to be able to not smoke pot, not become an alcoholic, manage my money, all the way to the top.
This is a refreshing blast of cold water to wake you up and to get you to take action. And that's what I want to share with people who watch the show.
Fearless with Tim Ferriss. Premieres Tuesday, May 30th at 8. Only on Audience.
The business burned down. Kids busy with lives of their own. Brother-in-law like a parasite. You haven't been laid in God knows how long. What are you doing? I'm fine.
This is Hydro. It's the promised land of God.
Badass.
I know you're a drug dealer.
I'm just getting started.
Lie down now, I'm gonna have to bust you up.
Think I want to shoot a damn cop?
That's a nice interview. You'd like to see what kind of life he's got. Where are we going with this, Romeo? I'm a rageaholic. You disrespect me, I'm gonna react. Work the case. Now you're telling me how to do my job.
12 years on the job, I never seen nothing like this.
He's gonna put himself in jail for a case no one's even looking at.
Every one of those guys knew exactly what we looked like.
Oh, jeez. He's a cop. You didn't go through his pockets? Your father killed that girl.
He wouldn't do something like that.
You let this be a lesson. Those that don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it, pal. Before the season premiere, the stars of Kingdom got ready for their close-ups.
Working with Scott McDermott is fantastic, and he's really captured the tone of the show.
Yeah, it's good.
To be a model, channel top model, channel Tyra Banks, her fine wisdom.
All the hours of work, this is the moment where it all pays off. It's gonna be fat times tonight, baby.
Kingdom, the final season, Wednesday, May 31st. Only on Audience.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks for doing this.
Oh, it's good to see you, Sam.
You know, obviously, kids in this day and age with the golden age of television and opportunity and every show ever made at their fingertips, I don't think can quite understand how limited our television choices were
right.
as children.
Man.
Me as a kid growing up, there was really the Brady Bunch, the Partridge Family, Happy Days, Andy Griffith, maybe the $6 Million Man. And that's what television was like back then. So I feel like I grew up knowing you.
Well,
and then I'm a fan of the films you've done, and this is a big occasion for me to have you on the show because it's our 100th episode.
100th?
Yes.
That's an honor.
It's an honor.
Hey, 100 is a hard number to get to in any era. It's a congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I've been involved in a few TV shows that made it to 100.
A few.
I guess the first time I was involved in a 100th episode, if I'm doing the math here, about we started off doing 39 Andy Griffith shows. Then we did 32, which was a bit of a break. So probably, I guess, around age 10.
Age 10.
Around 10, age 10. Well, I don't want to minimize, this moment.
I have been called a late bloomer. But I think it's fair to say that you are an early bloomer.
Well, I had some great opportunities, and I really did. And the greatest opportunity of all are the parents that I was born to. You know, and my father, Rance Howard, who is still with us, still working. Yeah. He's up in Marin County right now, shooting a TV show. Was a natural born, kind of a genius of a father, and also a fantastic acting teacher and he was already an actor, but he knew how to impart.
Well, I looked at his IMDb page, and he has 9 projects in development. I mean, he's 88 years old, correct?
Yes, he's 88.
He seems like he has more things going on than almost anybody.
He's a busy man. He's very competitive, and every once in a while, I remember growing up, I'd say, "How was that audition, Dad?" And he said, "Oh, he'd mention somebody and say, "Oh, that son of a bitch got the part. He always gets the part." And then I'd mention another one, and there'd be somebody else, and he'd say, "Oh, yeah, they gave it to son. That son of a bitch always beats me out." And he's just been working so much of late. And I said, "Well, Dad, you're working a lot. I guess you've outlived some of those other sons of bitches, huh?" And he said, "Yeah, but not enough of them yet." So the fire is still there in the belly.
Do you think there's something to the idea that you guys are hard workers in your genes? Because you look at your IMDb page and you have film credits in 7 decades.
Well, I got an early start,
You certainly did.
And I've enjoyed it. And I think one of the things that was a huge benefit was that I always enjoyed it. So I didn't go through a period of,
you never wanted to leave it and try something else.
I'm uncomfortable, I don't want to do this. I kind of knew what my default careers would be if I couldn't transition out of being a child actor and actually fulfill the dream that I had, which was to be a director.
What was your default career?
Well, it was either to be like a history teacher, and probably try to be a basketball coach or something, like a high school history teacher and basketball coach, or maybe to be a journalist. And
really?
At that time, I would have focused on sports journalism, probably. But I loved journalism all through school and was co-editor of the paper and things like that. So I've always been fascinated by that. And again, it gets back to parenting, but that work ethic is something that I could witness. Even though I was very quickly, early in my life, actually getting higher profile work than he was.
Right.
He handled that so incredibly well, and I think I also gained another understanding or a measure of gratitude, because I could actually see how fortunate I was to be getting these kinds of roles. And it's a thing that so many other people are striving to gain. And I just have never taken that for granted. I don't to this day. I get excited when I show up on the set, even if I know it's going to be a tough day of shooting, and a part of me is like dreading some of the things I'm going to have to face, whether they're logistical or personality clashes or just struggles I might have creatively with the scene. I still, as the car is pulling up, I get a kind of surge of, all right, let's see what we can do. Let's see, we have these resources, we have these people, we have this story, we have this opportunity. What can we do?
You're right, it's all parenting because, I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of confidence to make decisions at such an early age that set your life on course. I mean, you found your spouse and got married so young, had kids so young, quit acting so young.
Well, I was getting a lot of reinforcement as an actor, but I could also see my own limitations, and so I have a pretty healthy dose of self-criticism that's always running along in the back of my mind, and I felt like even though Happy Days was continuing to go along and be very successful and very lucrative, that I had to check myself, and I was beginning to direct during the off seasons and loving it, but I also saw that the studio system, feature films, were not going to embrace me while I was on a television series. They just wouldn't. And I became concerned that if I held off and went the full run of Happy Days, whatever that might be, that I might miss this moment. Right. You know, I think I guessed right, even though it was a tough decision and hard to leave everybody on that show and hard to leave the money. It was you know, I mean, it was great on a lot of levels. But you know, I had been kind of deferring the dream of becoming a full-time director the entire time I was with the show.
Now put that in context with age. Deferring the dream.
I know. Well, my first dream was to direct a feature while I was still in my teens. So that was the goal, kind of on a very superficial one. Who cares? But it mattered a little bit to me. But I didn't do that. I was at USC, and you know, I thought I might make an independent movie somehow, scrape it together. To you know, the independent market wasn't what it was today. Right. It was an even kookier idea. But when, well, to be honest, when I was 17, a senior in high school, my draft number for Viet was 41, and that was a low number. And there were no more college deferrals. There were no more educational deferrals. There were some work deferrals, and I had this opportunity to do a pilot for a TV show, even though I had just been accepted to USC film school. And that was what I wanted to do.
This was pre-Happy Days.
It was the Happy Days pilot that turned out to be on a spin-off of Love American Style and didn't sell. But I thought, I'll bet that ABC would keep me out of the jungle if I was the lead of their sitcom. I didn't think it through any more than that, but it was sort of like that tipped the scales to a yes. So then the show didn't sell.
Right.
And then it came back 2 years later, and oddly, even though I'd gotten into USC, I realized that I hadn't quite given up the itch for acting. American Graffiti had been a big success, but I did a lot of acting jobs, movies, some good television movies and things like that, but not great stuff. And when Happy Days came along, I thought, you know, this is a pretty good gig, and I should take it. And I thought, you know, TV shows, how many of them ever run? I'll just, you know, I'll bank a year or two and go back to film school.
Yeah, right.
And it just kept going and going and going.
So you deferred your dream for a draft deferment.
which I didn't need because Nixon ultimately did away with the draft.
Right.
But I didn't agree with that war, and I didn't want to go in and serve.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine in that age, you say you want to direct films, and the response isn't what it would be today.
No. I got a lot of very patronizing pats on the head.
You did.
And directors saying, "Yeah, you keep it up when you get into your 30s. You know, keep making short films and things." You know, the system was so different at that time. So the one place a new young filmmaker could have a chance to not have to scrape the money together, you know, on their own, was working for Roger Corman.
The B-movie king.
Yeah. Again, there was no MTV at this point. There was no way to go do videos. You know, I mean, he gave Martin Scorsese the first job. He gave Francis Coppola, Dementia 13, his first movie opportunity. Peter Bogdanovich. And it went on and on. Jonathan Demme. You know, lots and lots of award winners. Right after me was James Cameron. You know, then the list goes on and on. And he described his approach in a very interesting way. He said, you know, it's up to the director to bring the point of view and even the politics. I don't care, but I need a genre that is fulfilled to the extent that an audience sees a poster, watches a trailer, goes to that movie, and isn't disappointed on an escapism level.
So when you went and did that, I mean, you acted in the film. You did Grand Theft Auto, and you acted in it and directed it.
Well, before that, Roger, Happy Days had become a #1 show in our 3rd season, and I wasn't getting great movie offers as an actor, but this offer came in for a movie called Eat My Dust, and I read it, and it was kind of a goofy car chase comedy, and and I wasn't that impressed with it, but I had written a script with my father, which was like an indie style movie, something I hoped to make kind of on my own in 16 or something. And when this came to me, I thought, oh, this is an opportunity maybe. And I went to the meeting with Roger, and I even asked my agent of many years, the guy who had been my agent as a kid, not to go to the meeting because I knew he wouldn't support what I was going to pitch. But I went into Roger and I said, to be honest, I don't really love Eat My Dust, but I should have been wearing the T-shirt. What I really want to do is direct.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I know your reputation, and I'd like to follow in that path. I'd like to go to the University of Roger Corman, And he said, yes, we like to think we churn out directors for Hollywood the way USC churns out running backs for the NFL. That was his statement. And he said, well, let me read your script. And he read it, and he said, well, this is sort of an art film, and that's not really what I do. It's well written. He looked at a couple of short films that I'd made. They were very rough around the edges, but he said, I can really see that you can stage scenes and cut them together and all of that. So he said, here's what I'll do. I'm not going to promise you everything you want, but given what I can see in here, if you'll star and Eat My Dust, I will give you an opportunity to develop a story. And it can be you and your father or however you want to do it. And if that works, we'll go to screenplay. And if that works and I want to make it, you'll get to direct it, providing you star in it. And he said, if all that fails, I will guarantee you that you can direct the second unit on one of my other car crash movies. So it wasn't like I'd been, touched by the película, the god of cinema, with the golden opportunity, but it was concrete.
Yeah.
It was real, and I believed in Roger, and I thought, this is this is somebody who's listening to my ambition. And so I did it. It was a hit. I went in and pitched a lot of ideas for kind of cool indie-style movies I thought I'd want to make, a cool sci-fi thing, and a noir kind of movie, and I had a lot of ideas. And he said, well, those are all great, but he said, when we were testing titles for Eat My Dust, there was another title that came in a very close second, Grand Theft Auto. Roger's a very erudite man. Grand Theft Auto. If you can fashion a car crash comedy, starring yourself, of course, that we can correctly entitle Grand Theft Auto, that's a picture I might make.
Really? Based on the title?
In about 36 hours, my dad and I had an outline. In about another 3 weeks, we had a script. It was the fastest green light I think I've ever gotten in my life.
No kidding.
And I got to make Grand Theft Auto, and it led to a lot of great things. Not only a fantastic experience, hell of a learning experience. I was skinny going in. I lost 15 pounds making that movie.
Did you really?
I was really skin and bones when it was over. The editor, who was Joe Dante, the great director, was my editor. He was another Roger Corman graduate. And he called me up about halfway through. He said, Ron, you got to eat something. I know you're directing and you're starring, but you got to eat something. It's showing in the dailies. It was a tremendous experience, and most important of all, and I was already married. I was 23 at this time, so I didn't make a movie at 19, but I did get to make it at 23.
Right.
And my wife Cheryl was a PA and everything, and then the crew was rebelling, and she wound up cooking the meals for everybody, and they loved her for it. And we got through the whole thing, and our wrap party was this impromptu gathering out right next to the Saugus Speedway, where we'd finished shooting this car demolition derby sequence on our last day. The second unit was there, the first unit was there, we were all there, filthy. And it was just impromptu, doing shots, listening to wherever the bar band was, and dancing. And I remember saying to Cheryl, I said, I like this even more than I dreamed I would, and so I was completely hooked.
Well, you say that the crew rebelled and you're young. I mean, I remember myself in my 20s and trying to go out there and make something of myself. I had days when I had a ton of confidence, and I had days when, if you blew on me, I'd shrivel up out of fear.
I thought I was going to get shit canned on the very first day.
Did you really?
Well, because I went in and I was nervous as hell, and I had to be in the scene, And Roger had said, "Look, I have some requirements. You have to shot list everything, and I want you to diagram all the action scenes." So I had done all of that homework, and I was prepared, and I'd gone over and over it. Our cinematographer Gary Graver was an experienced guy, and yet Roger had said, "I'm going to come the first day, probably just half the day," and he said, "If it's going well, you won't see very much of me. But if it's not going well, and you're not making your days, you're going to see one hell of a lot of me." So I understood the rules, and I'd talked to Jonathan Demme and others who were already graduates, but who'd counseled me a little bit, and I knew that the budget was the thing, and I was just dying. I mean, by lunch, I think I was supposed to do 32 setups that day, and I think I'd done 5 or 6 or something, and it was an interior scene with some lighting and some staging, and I was really sick. And Gary Graver came into my trailer and said, "Well, I think here's some ideas. We can simplify some things." And we wound up, making our day. We went like 1 hour over, and we made our day. It was brilliant. He really carried me. And Roger stayed all day, which was not what he was supposed to do. But he was very happy when it was over. And he came a little part of the second day, and then he left, and he said, "I think you're doing great, Ron." And the support was there. And by day 3, I felt like I really had my rhythm, and I felt like I'd been directing for years, because I began to see that you could really trust the crew, because I did have a plan, but you didn't have to be rigid about it. There were ways to be more expedient,
right?
And if you communicated more efficiently, you got what was in your head, onto the screen in a more consistent way. I just learned a hell of a lot very quickly. But having been an actor, I innately just understood the rhythm of a shooting day and that kind of creative problem solving. And it's why I always believe that the shortest cut to being like an effective, efficient director is having acted. It doesn't mean that can't come out of film school having made a great short, or be a fantastic DP and make a movie that no one will ever forget. But in terms of just having that skill set, that sensitivity to, with a live action production, getting that work done and realizing the potential, the possibility of scenes, I think actors have a leg up.
I wonder how much your style was developed on that first film.
The biggest thing that I learned in that first film and in others were to really learn to not just trust collaboration, but to love it. And it took me a little while as a young director to be willing to say to a cinematographer or an actor or a writer, "I don't know. What do you think?"
Well, I imagine. I mean, if you're the youngest guy on set, I'm sure in your mind you're already going, "These guys are planning on me failing,"
yeah.
or they're not giving me good odds.
Right. Everybody wants the director to know. They actually want the director to succeed, but they're ready to look at it and sort of say, I don't think he or she is. They don't have it. They don't understand the scene today, or whatever. And then you can start to lose that support system. But I mean, there's nothing more exciting than an actor coming up with a legitimate problem, and suddenly you're in the middle of it. And it's so exciting to see the solution, emerge. I mean, I'm so thrilled. That's why I love actors who, want to contribute.
Right.
Like Felicity Jones was in Inferno, and of course Rogue One after that, and before that Theory of Everything, where she was nominated for. Very bright, talented woman, and but 30 years old, and she's working with Tom Hanks and I, and you could see that she was a little reluctant to engage in this kind of conversation.
Because of the legendary status, you and Tom were there.
And the fact that Tom and I would inevitably slip into war stories, and then we'd have to apologize for her and say, this must be boring the hell out of you, Felicity. But when we were back doing Splash underwater, which we kind of couldn't help ourselves, but she said, no, I'm learning as much from that as anything and keep going. But I loved seeing her get her footing. And I loved what she did with that character. And a lot of it was her taking ownership and my beginning to understand what she had to contribute and knowing how to support her in that. And that's thrilling for me. And so I'm always looking for that, whether it's, again, the cinematographers, editors, composers, but writers. I love that collaboration. But it's very exciting for me always with the cast.
Well, I would say the first film that really got me was Parenthood.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I saw it when it came out in theaters, and then for this I watched it again, and it's funny that it connected with me again, but in a whole different way. I mean, I have kids, and they're the age of some of those kids in there, and I didn't have kids the first time I watched it, but it connected with me both times. And I wanted to talk about that as an example of a film, because I think that film probably changed your scope as a director of what could be done with cinema. I mean, was that film...
Definitely.
Do you feel close to that film?
I feel very close to that film. It's probably my most personal film because it was made at a time where I could have been the Steve Martin character, and almost all of us involved, Brian Grazer, myself, Lowell Gans, Bob Lou Mandel, we were all kind of living that, and so for all of us it was very it was very personal, and it was a very important stepping stone, but it was a great experience. The sort of the serio-comic combination, the different ways in which it reached different audience members.
Right.
It's the first time that I was really aware of that possibility, and I love stories that create empathy. Now, notice I didn't necessarily say sympathy, although you certainly want the audience to feel sympathy for some characters. I'd like them to feel empathy for almost all of them, and that is a goal for me, is to sort of put the audience in the circumstance as best I can, whatever the genre, and try to create some suspense around that, whether it's comedy, fantasy, or thriller, or adventure story.
Yeah.
And that's that process of sharing with the audience ideas that feel very, very relatable. And it's a different kind of, it's not the purest kind of escapism. It's more about connecting, but it can still be fun, and it can still be exciting and thrilling, but there is that sort of emotional tether.
Did that film feel like a risk to you at the time?
Well, they all feel like risks. In fact, when the ones that I felt sure about commercially have almost always been somewhat disappointing.
Really?
And the ones that I was unsure of tended to do better. Like Apollo 13, I had no idea that was going to be a commercial movie. I didn't think Cocoon would be commercial. So, no, I wasn't convinced that Parenthood was going to be commercial. We made it modestly. I always have a way of, I like to be a little reductive. It's almost like a way of taking a little bit of the pressure off. Like with Cocoon, I used to call it Close Encounters on Golden Pond, just as a way of sort of saying, "Come on, you're not reinventing the wheel here," But and Parenthood, my goal was to sort of say the greatest sitcom ever told.
You were managing your expectations.
Yes, right.
I wonder if that's a movie where you discovered that to discover an essential truth about something, you can go as specific as you want and personal as you want, and it will still resonate. But if you don't do the work to discover that essential truth, you can't make a connection. I mean, was there a discovery there for you on
Definitely. It was the first movie, even though it was fiction, that was built on a bedrock of authenticity. I did Parenthood, which was sort of inspired by me and the inner creative circle, us, some of the things that we'd felt, and emotions that were very real to me and that I had experience with. And then I did a movie called the paper, which was about journalism, a
Right.
subject I loved. So I was beginning to move into this area of building on authenticity first and foremost, and then letting the fiction grow out of that, which, you're right, began with Parenthood. Then came Apollo 13, and I'd always been afraid to deal with a true story, because I thought it was going to be artistically, creatively limiting. But the story was so compelling, and it was such a great cinematic opportunity.
Yeah.
And I had this, probably the most exciting creative experience ever. Parenthood was very personal. I've loved making some movies lots of them. I've loved it. But I think there was something about Apollo 13, the story we were telling, which was little known, using movie magic to try to, in a very authentic way, let people understand what those space pioneers really did.
Right.
And tell this story that was kind of bittersweet, because it wasn't about a triumph. It was about survival and a rescue.
What did that open up for you? Because it's just like this new project that you have, the Einstein film Genius on National Geographic Channel. It's taking something that people think they know, and it's finding out there's all these tributaries of stories that haven't been mined.
I'll tell you, Apollo 13 opened up that possibility, because I not only enjoyed it, but I was also really blown away by the way audiences responded to real events and the details in real events. They had much more patience for the specifics and the details than they would a movie that's a thriller or a genre movie. But here was the big epiphany. Audiences were so fascinated by the details of it, even if they didn't quite understand those acronyms and all of it. You could tell it became part of the entertainment value of the story. But when we were doing test screenings for the movie, there's no publicity. You just drop the movie in an audience, and they know it's a test audience. They don't even know what they're going to see. And so this audience loved the movie, even though our visual effects weren't finished. It was just so thrilling. The test scores were, spectacular. In fact, there was only 1 out of 400 that gave it a poor. I mean, that's great but of course, as a director, even though at that point I had Final Cut already, and I didn't have to worry about that guy's card, I needed to find the poor. And it was a guy. It was a young guy, age 21. And he just did not like it at all. Just poor, wouldn't recommend it. Just big, terse, bold pencil strokes. Just dismissive as hell. Finally, I flipped over the card, and I couldn't figure out what was bothering this guy. And I said, please comment on the ending. He said, terrible. More Hollywood bullshit. They would never survive. So, of course, he didn't know it was based on a true story, and he thought it was hopeful.
Exactly.
So I thought that's another reason you make true stories, because you take really extraordinary moments where outcomes defy expectation, behaviors defy expectation and logic sometimes, but they happened. And that's what you get to work with. So suddenly your storytelling can be so much more extreme, and within that is the freedom, because now you want to apply cinema to that and express to an audience. It's not a documentary. You still have to make these creative choices to try to express to an audience again what it might have felt like to be there. And that's a really thrilling job for me. And since then I've done 6 movies based on real events, and now this piece about Einstein for National Geographic, which was a real joy. And I don't think I would have tackled this subject either as a director or an executive producer had I not had the experience of A Beautiful Mind and some of the other movies based on real events. Because we're dealing with Einstein here. The bar is high.
Well, it's funny. You've said in many conversations that you call yourself a non-intellectual, and I think that taking a story that's that complex and figuring out how to cinematically tell it in a way that audiences not only will feel engaged and feel like they can keep up, but also that they can find the humanity in someone that before they've held on a pedestal. I think that's an intellectual pursuit. But I wonder if you call yourself that. I wonder if that's sort of that imposter syndrome that comes from a kid who didn't go to an Ivy League school.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I certainly am. I'm not the best educated person, but the filmmaking process has provided me a lot of opportunities to educate myself and interact with really brilliant people.
Yeah.
Learn that I could keep up. I could more than keep up. I could lead, and so that's meant a great deal to me over the years. I wouldn't have tackled the story if I didn't feel I could deliver something exciting, entertaining, surprising. So even though I had looked at outlines in the past based on Einstein's life for presentations for movies, even a screenplay many years ago, I think, and I never felt like it fit the movie narrative. But the idea that we could do it, and do it for this network, National Geographic, and tell it in 10 hours, I felt like we had a chance as storytellers to do this man justice and deal with him warts and all, because he was a complicated guy, and nobody is immune from those human foibles or those moments of character deficiency or really difficult choices. And Einstein, who was not an introvert, he loved life, he loved women. I mean, he was kind of he was a ladies' man. Who would have known that?
Gosh, a TV series like that, even a limited series, is such a different art form than a film, because in a film, 90% of your work is figuring out how to get your story into a
compressed format,
and a format that's pretty defined.
Yes, and will flow and hold an audience's attention in a single viewing.
Right.
But the way the business is evolving, it now makes sense to work in a lot of different formats, whether it's short form, whether it's OTT work, whether it's documentary. There's no better place to make this story of Einstein than for National Geographic. Yeah. And I'm not just saying it because they bought it. It sends a signal to the audience, And I think because there are so many shows, there are so many options out there for all of us, that anything that helps define and build the case for why this particular project is worth sampling, is worth exploring, helps, because we as storytellers, we want our stories to be seen and heard.
Well, I look at a film like Rush that you did that I just love, and I feel like what a complex giant story that is. Even in script form, you have to be able to, number one, have a very specific point of view, and number two, crack the code of what the story is about. And I wonder if there was a time when that all became more transparent to you, or you figured out how to use the medium rather than having the medium be a mystery to you.
Well, I feel that I'm growing all the time. And again, you talk about a movie like Rush. I couldn't have made it even 10 years before. Peter Morgan's script was remarkable, based on real events, so there was a tremendous amount of research. But I think he understood the character dynamics and what could be entertaining about that and revealing and thematically rich. But I also felt like there was this, that you had to understand on a visceral level what it was to get into those cars and race.
You were so good at understanding human emotions that you take that part of it for granted in a way. Like when you describe your big accomplishment, it's with the visceral thrill of getting in those cars. But I think watching that film, I learn about how men feel misunderstood, how they deal with ego. An audience for that film, I think your allegiance can change from one character to the next. And I think one of the great accomplishments in that film is that it gets inside what it is to be a man that needs accomplishment to feel worthy.
One of the things that you said that I'm really glad you felt, and it was something that I really wanted, was a lot of people were saying, who's the hero, who's the villain? And again, I get back to that idea of empathy and sympathy, and I think it was important to me that your allegiance could shift.
Yeah.
That was challenging and very important to work with the actors. And again, that's I love those kinds of challenges and helping work with actors to try to meet those challenges, and then take that material to the editing room and find that most cohesive, most expressive performance.
I would think that at one point you would have to take ownership of the script entirely. You're going to have to narrow your point of view or define your point of view to make the movie thematically strong. Whereas, because you could give that same script to 10 different directors, you'd have 10 different movies.
Yes, you do have to, and that's the high wire act. But you have to come to terms with yourself. If you're going to make a lot of films and a lot of television shows, and this is my way of life. Some are going to turn out better than others, and the ones that disappoint you they're gut wrenching, each and every one, because you go into every project hoping it's going to be something an all-time great. But I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Wall Street guy, and he's always been a trader, and he's in the bond trading business, and he said when he recruits young talent, he likes they have to understand math, but he loves to get men and women who are athletes, highly competitive athletes. And I said, because you're trying to win, right? It's kind of a zero-sum thing. He said, no, they know how to lose. They know how to lose and get back up and go hard. And nobody reaches that caliber of athletic achievement without losing a hell of a lot more than they ever win. And they learn how to cope with that. And I think if we're doing this kind of work, you want to make it your life's work, you sort of have to have that mental toughness, or at least that understanding.
What I hear you saying is that you had to come to terms with the fact that there's going to be some failures along the way, and that shouldn't determine the choice for the next film. Is that true?
Yes, and I had a couple of early observations about that. One was I acted in a television show with Henry Fonda, which was not a good show. It was called The Smith Family. It was in between the Andy Griffith Show and Happy Days, and it lasted a year and a half. And he knew that I wanted to be a film student. I was still in high school then, but I was making Super 8 movies and letting him read little scripts and short stories and things like that. And he said, well, you clearly love all of this, and I think you should really pursue being a director, because if you love that medium, it's a director's medium. If you want to act and that's what you love, movies are great, television's fine, but you got to be on stage also. And he said, but either way you go, he said, you got to risk your career every so often. You've got to feel like you're challenging yourself and not repeating yourself. And it was very interesting for him. When I realized, because Brian Grazer and I were teaming up for Imagine Entertainment, and it was working, and Splash was a success, and I could see I was going to get to make other movies and have a career. The only rule I gave myself was that I loved the medium, and I wanted to explore it. I didn't want to be a brand unless that brand was just somehow quality, which is pretty vague. But I tried to. I said I'm not going to do what I've done on these television series and have a life where I'm basically telling the same story over and over again because we know people like it. I'm going to insist upon challenging myself. And I reached a point by the time Apollo 13 came around where the creative community, studios, audiences came to expect that variety from me.
Right.
And that was unbelievably liberating. And I began to feel the confidence so that now I don't choose a movie because I haven't worked in that genre before. Now I choose a story with themes that I like and believe in, or a situation I think audiences are going to particularly enjoy and engage with. And I have the sort of the experience now to apply the appropriate genre to maximize that set of ideas and those characters, and that's really liberating.
But once you have a few hits, whether they're luck or not, I would think that's when the real fear comes in, because now you have to sustain something.
And now there's something to lose.
Right.
Right. And I was able to work my way through that fear, and it was also, it was great to have had the experience I had as a kid, and I was around a lot of people who were high achievers, and I understood that they weren't always confident. I could see it even as a kid.
Because you were around all these adult directors
and stars, and I saw how much Andy Griffith put of himself into every one of those episodes. That looks like an aw shucks, easygoing, show to put on. Andy struggled. And there were, if an episode wasn't good, he felt it to the very end. He put his stamp on that show.
You've talked about your own limitations as an actor. Like you've said yourself that you feel like you have limited range as an actor, and you said that you knew you were never going to be an artist as an actor.
Yes, I was right. I was right about that. I had a lot more creative potential as a director than I had as an actor, and it's some I don't quite have an actor's mentality. Yeah, I became an actor as a child, but I don't have a performer's mentality, and I some people, Russell Crowe, De Niro, Cate Blanchett, Hanks can embody something, and they use their whole system, so that their body becomes an instrument. They can do that kind of work, if I was well cast, I could be very effective. But I could just see it. I could see it, and I can see it to this day. So I'd rather take the artist, create the environment where he or she can, max out, flourish.
When you see that kind of actor at work, is that still a mystery to you, even though you've done it?
Well, I do think there's this kind of an X factor there. I do think that people have a gift. I'm not sure that can be learned. I think it can be encouraged. I think it can be brought out. But I think some people, it has to do with their minds, their physicality, and their ability to somehow access it, and in remarkable ways. And so I'm in awe of that. And what I try to do is help or guide, or if they're given their personalities, are they kind of are they interfering with their own process in some way? Can I help with that? But mostly, can I understand where what they have to offer and this story can intersect, and can I create the opportunity to get those moments of intersection, photographed in the right way? Can I do that? And that's my job.
It's a mystery to me is how some actors can look down for a minute and look back, and there's 3 pages of exposition in that glance, and it's not a trick.
Yeah.
They are transferring information to the audience, and I would bet that they don't know how they do, or they couldn't put words to it. Is that valid to you?
Absolutely. It's great actors achieve that. I'll tell 2 quick stories about it. One, I wasn't directing. But I was watching my friend Tom Hanks evolve as an actor, and I saw a moment in Forrest Gump when the bus is driving away and he's left alone. And I always thought Tom was incredibly talented, incredibly glib, very funny, full of emotion, but I thought he was most alive when he was talking. And I saw that moment and the way he filled it, and I remember thinking, now he's a great screen actor. And then when I began directing him on Apollo 13 a year or so later, I saw it for myself, and I could see it live. And I would sometimes just have a B camera, come over and not even tell Tom, and because it wasn't about calibrating for a close-up or anything like that. He was just feeling these scenes in these particular ways, and I would have a camera just find him and capture these things. It's powerful, And you mentioned Parenthood. I had a great experience directing fantastic character actor, legendary stage actor, Jason Robards Jr.
Oh, yeah.
But I cast him in this role. He's playing the paternal, the grandfather character. And he's got this powerful scene with Tom Hulse, where Tom Hulse is the younger son who's disappointing his father, basically. He's a bit of a
It's the fear that every parent has.
Yeah.
That you get that kid.
And that he's just never going to quite grow up, and turn the corner. And so we're doing this scene, and unfortunately, it's the first scene that Jason has to do, given the way we're scheduling it. So we're not getting to go in story order, which is too bad. But we're playing out this scene, and I have the camera favoring Jason now. It's kind of a closer shot. We can really read the details of what he's feeling, and I didn't think he was registering enough. I didn't feel like he was. I didn't feel that pain. He seemed to be sort of withholding his emotions and just, and he was chilly, but I didn't feel the hurt, And I thought we needed to get a take where we tried to achieve that. And so at this point, I was 34 years old. And I went up to Jason, and I'm talking
He was,
to
what,
him.
65 at the time?
Yeah, 65 or 70, you know, and had won multiple Tonys and Oscars and so forth. And I'm talking to him about the moment, and I don't want to give him a line reading, for God's sakes, not Jason Robards Jr. So I'm kind of rambling along, trying to find the words to not offend, but to provoke, you know, something. And he reached over and touched my hand, and he said, "Ron, do you want a sadder face?" And now I thought, okay, well, now the veteran is just fucking with the young director. And now, okay, so we'll do a take, and he'll make a big mug shot, you know, a muggy face or something, and then I'll come in and we'll calibrate from there, I suppose. And, you know, but okay, I said, well, maybe that's it. And let's just try it. And we rolled the cameras, and it's the take that's in the movie. It was the most honest, organic, truthful depiction of that moment I could have ever dreamed of. And for Jason Robards Jr. at age 65 or 70, all he needed was a word, sadder, or two words, sadder face, and he could process that in a way that whether he was feeling it, I don't know what his emotional biosystem, I don't know what was going on, what his biochemistry was, but what I saw was entirely truthful and evoked everything that I was hoping for. So that was a lesson learned, that actors can keep getting better. It is an art form, and it's high art, and it's awesome to see it on display.
In the end, what do you take away from that?
It's always an exploration. I've given directions and I've unhinged actors.
How do you walk that back?
Well, you almost can't. You try, but I mean, I try not to say too much until we've gotten a couple of takes. I mean, I kind of want to get the actor's organic version first, unless I'm seeing it in rehearsal and it's taking the scene in entirely the wrong direction, and then begin a little process of experimentation.
What happens when their baseline is so far off from your expectation?
I mean, I have replaced actors. Sometimes there's a disconnect. This hasn't happened more than a handful of times.
Right.
But if you made a mistake in casting, you know that sometimes you have to rectify it in a really disappointing way. But if you're thorough about the casting process, it pretty much never happens. And I am thorough. As much as I really, really hate putting actors through that process of auditions and meetings and discussions and all that stuff, I hate it as an actor myself. I hate putting people I respect and a craft and an art form that I respect through that sort of dehumanizing process. But better that than a mistake that you have to adjust, when you're in production. But almost every project, I look at what we're doing and I see a minefield of dangerous directions that it could go, and I'm trying to avoid them as best I can. But I've also made enough films and television shows to see that sometimes it's not what you anticipated that winds up hurting your project. It's something you didn't anticipate. So again, live action production, unlike animation, is an inexact process. And like Robert Altman said, the movie speaks for itself eventually. It kind of evolves into itself, and you can as much as you want to apply your auteur controls to that, you have to also understand that they take on a life of their own. And I've seen it happen, and I've seen things elevate, and I've seen things ultimately disappoint. But when I'm midway through it, I'm just a total advocate, believer, and trying to make the moments great. And then you take it to the editing room, and that's where you begin to see whether the moments have added up in the way you hoped they would. And the most disappointing thing is when it miscommunicates, or it communicates as you'd planned, but somehow that is not speaking to the audience and reaching them in the way that you and your collaborators thought it would. It's the most honest mistake, because it's some sort of misjudgment that is really impossible to anticipate, or next to impossible to anticipate.
Yeah, I think that would be the hardest situation, is when the film works out exactly like you wanted it to, and then it doesn't.
And people fold their arms and say,
Right. I mean, do you
we all
sort of-
do it. I mean,
sure.
When we watch something, it lands or it doesn't land.
Right.
And everybody, I can guarantee you, people busted their asses.
I think it's a miracle when something does land collectively.
Yeah.
Because certainly it lands to somebody. Everything lands for somebody.
Right.
But for something to land collectively seems like it's just, you couldn't take it personally, right? I mean, is there too many factors out of your control, even though you're the director? Or are you someone who says, I take the responsibility, good or bad?
I do take the responsibility, good or bad.
You do. You don't chalk it up to sometimes.
Oh well, I think I can look myself in the mirror and say, well, I didn't see that one coming, and neither did some very important people in the process. Damn. But I don't ever think anything is anybody else's fault.
You don't.
No. Sometimes I could say that I wasn't alone in being wrong, nor was I alone in being right. So I like the team. But by the way, I kind of like, as much as I love to be the director, and I enjoy producing, I do like the sort of the collaboration and the team spirit.
Right. Are you hard on yourself when something doesn't work?
Yeah, of course. Because who else's job was it to get it right?
Have you ever gotten a critique that you really took to heart and learned from? Like, do you ever learn from that experience of, or have you ever had a film that the experience was different for you than it was for the audience, or it was positive?
Oh yes, all of the above. Yes, sometimes a movie means a lot to you, a story means a lot to you, and you're just in that minority. Because as you said, every story speaks to some portion of the audience.
Yeah.
If you're making broad mainstream entertainment, which is what I do and what I want to do, you've got to reach the majority.
That's a high bar to
and
set.
It's a high bar to set. And I've learned a lot over the years about kind of asking the right sort of questions to understand where the project is going and what people might be anticipating. But it's a fascinating process, and I've gotten better and better at it, and a little bit less tough on myself. Whereas in the beginning, the editing room was where I was really just wanted to slip my wrists, because it was just like, who's directing this frickin' movie? Really? You didn't do another take? There's a great thing in the movie, All That Jazz, where Bob Fosse directed it, and Roy Scheider's playing Bob Fosse, basically, doing Lenny, and he's in the editing room, and he's flipping out, and he's saying, God damn it, what asshole told the actor to do that? Me! I'm the asshole that told the actor to play it that way. And it's like the most honest thing about directing, because sometimes directing does, it does make you feel stupid.
Well, do you ever wonder what it is, like how it is that you get so much smarter when you're on the editing couch and you're looking at it going, why couldn't I see that?
Oh, again, it's that you saw a portion of it, but you couldn't see it all together. It is a kind of mosaic, and you're piecing it together. But it's the question of all questions, and we're always trying to do better at it.
You know what I liken it to? I liken it to when you watch home movies of your kids a few years later. When you're there with the camera, and you're watching it, you're missing everything, and then you go back a couple of years and you watch, and you go, or even 6 months, and you say, why didn't I see what my child was doing or trying to tell me? Or
that's a great analogy. And
why can't we see real life as it happens?
Yeah, damn.
I caught a frame of Bryce in Parenthood.
Oh yeah. She appeared in our final scene. And once in a while, she would show up in my movies as an extra. She was always interested.
Well, it broke my heart because it's that scene where, and obviously this isn't a new idea that parenting is a roller coaster, but you earned that metaphor in that film by taking us on a ride. And then what I felt when we got to that part in Parenthood was I felt a bit of relief, because you got the sense that we're doing the best we can, and it's not really within our control. Parenting is it's acceptance of ourselves, and that's the best lesson about that movie, and the best lesson about being a parent is learning to accept our humanness and to see your daughter in that moment. I mean, it kind of brought it all together for me of being a parent, thinking about what you were going through, and
well, that whole idea was born on a plane flight. It was a 17-hour plane flight to Buenos Aires. We were going to do the movie with Michael Keaton and Gedde Watanabe, Gung Ho, and we couldn't get into any automobile plant in the U.S. It was about Japanese company taking over American automobile plant, and so we had to go to Buenos Aires where they would let us use this one wing of this plant that was semi-shut down, and Bryce was about 4 years old, and we had our twins, Jocelyn and Paige, were only about 7 months old. So Bryce was maybe 4.5. And she was going to sit next to me on this 17-hour flight. Now, we didn't ship ahead. We needed the diapers and the baby formula and all the stuff that we needed with us. So we were only allowed 2 carry-on items. I had 24 carry-on items. So I got the crew, it was a commercial flight, to all carry on stuff for me. And my job was to look after Bryce on the flight. And so they had this little vegetarian sushi dish. And I said, do you want to try sushi? There's no fish in it. It's just vegetarian. She said, okay. And she tried it. And within the first 40 minutes of the flight, she projectile vomited all over my shirt. And I had no change. So I was just like, oh, God. And the babies were crying, and I was helping Cheryl, and we were just walking them and driving the crew crazy, and we got landed, and we got all 24 pieces of luggage, and I was pulling luggage off the carousel, just sweating like a pig, I was like, how old was I, 32, 33 years old, I was just like an old man, just suffering, and I just thought, nobody told me. Why wouldn't anybody tell me what this was like? I was feeling so sorry for myself, and I realized, oh, that's funny, because if people told you, none of us would do it. Yeah. And I just started laughing while I was on the carousel. A little bit like Steve Martin is laughing at the end when he realizes it's chaos, but it's my life, and it's what I want. And that was so in a weird way, the emotion that sort of hatched that idea was kind of the emotion on Steve Martin's face there at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because I grew up with you on my television or the stories you're able to tell are a combination of both, but it's just great to be able to hear you share these stories and connect with your films and know that there's not that great of a difference between the man and the work you're making. And I admire the work you do, and more than that, I just admire the way you've lived your life.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. What a great opportunity to talk. I love your show. Here I am, the 100th episode, and I got to say I'm a fan, which is why I'm here.
I can't think of a better 100th guest, so thank you for doing this.
Pleasure. Thank you.
To continue the off-camera experience, visit offcamera.com. Get full access to additional content, podcasts, and the Off-Camera magazine. Because the best conversations happen off-camera.
Well, I've been in a lot of rooms where it's very clear I'm not supposed to be there. Like when you're at that party and someone say, hey, you know that band? And you want to go, yeah, of course I know that band. Say no. Tell me about them. When you do that, you actually make a connection with the person. When you have the responsibility of telling someone's life story, you want to get things right. It's not about all of the things that you've done. What's next?
On this stage, we'll sit down with world-class performers of all types, dissect strategies and tactics that they used to overcome doubt, tackle hard decisions, and ultimately succeed. The goal isn't to be fearless. The goal is to learn to fear less.
Fearless with Tim Ferriss premieres Tuesday, May 30th at 8 on Audience.
My guest tonight was an unstoppable force of nature on the football field and living proof that if you're willing to put in the work, anything is possible. After being drafted in the first round by the Dallas Cowboys, Emmitt James Smith III would go on to rewrite the record books and become the NFL's all-time leading rusher. He's an 8-time Pro Bowler, league MVP, and 3-time Super Bowl champion. But before he would set the record for most rushing touchdowns in NFL history, did you know he dreamed of playing for the Dallas Cowboys when he was just 7 years old? Carried his birth certificate to youth football games to prove his age. Had Walter Payton's nickname Sweetness stitched onto his high school letterman's jacket. Well, tonight we'll learn what makes this undeniable icon who he is. A man who once said, "I'm an enigma, an unknown. You can't really figure out what I'm going to do next. I like it like that." Please welcome Pro Football Hall of Famer, Emmitt Smith.
You must be pretty special.
Well,
a lot of people in here.
I was going to say, I think I speak on behalf of the 44,000 people that are in this room right now when I say, you look damn good. I mean,
Thank you, man.
The unofficial word is you're the best dressed in the 20-plus guests we've had sit in that chair. And maybe most importantly, you outdid Troy Aikman yet again.
Well, like someone asked me earlier in the backstage, or am I going to outdo Troy? I'm like, that's not the intent. But I'm going to be who I am.
Right.
I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to come out here dressed appropriately and show respect to my man Joe Buck. And just give people what they came to see.
The whole reason for this show is you get to know where somebody came from, and in your specific case, the answer is Pensacola, Florida.
Right. Not many people know what that's at, right?
Oh, yeah, we do. But from what I can tell, a really strong family. I mean, you were born into a hell of a place to grow up.
Well, my mom and dad and my grandfather and grandmother, they did a very good job of raising all 5 of their kids, or grandkids as well. That's me and my brother Eric, who's younger than I am. I'm the oldest right there. So
you already got guns there.
Yeah, I started working out early. Herschel Walker was doing push-ups, so I figured I'd start too.
Yeah, some curls.
And so, being the oldest boy in the house, yes, I had tremendous responsibilities, and I also had an opportunity to learn how to take care of myself and as well as take care of others.
It's funny, when I talked to your brother Emery, he said, our dad may have been the most talented athlete in the entire family. I said, wait a minute now. Your brother's the all-time leading rusher in the history of the NFL. He said, I'm telling you, guys who saw him back in the day say he could really run the ball.
That's what guys say. And fortunately for me, I never got a chance to see it. But, he was at a time where tape wasn't quite like it is today.
Right.
But there was a lot of people in my hometown that actually gave my father kudos. He was a running back at Booker T. Washington High School, and people talk very highly of him.
His nickname was Puddin'.
Puddin'. And it still is Puddin'.
And this is a guy who really had to give up his dream, though, to take care of his mother, your grandmother.
Right.
Irma Lee.
Yes. My grandmother, who was a sweet lady, very spiritual woman, she became ill where she had a debilitating disease that restricted her from walking, and she was confined to a wheelchair for a number of years. I remember her at a time when she used to walk with a walker, and I could see her deteriorating. And I was fairly young at the time, and my father actually gave up a college scholarship to stay home to take care of her. And so he never really had a chance to go and fulfill his dream or pursue his dream at playing the game of football. And so, which was kind of sad. My father grew up driving the city bus, humble man.
But let's say this. he was great at what he did, right? He was a part of the Million Mile Club and was really proud of driving that bus safely.
Without a doubt.
For 1,000,000 miles.
Without a doubt. And without a doubt. And he's still proud of that fact. But my father was a very cool man. Very
How
quiet.
was he with you? Tough love?
My mother,
huggy-feely guy?
No. Nothing huggy-feely about my pops.
I kind of knew the answer.
Nothing.
I kind of knew the answer before I asked it.
If he
but
got to be Philly, it was because he laid hands on me. But my mom was the one that did both. She actually loved on us. She gave us inspiration. She actually gave us tough love, too, to let us know that we needed to do things the right way.
But tell me about what the house felt like.
The house felt like a home. It felt like a complete home. My mom did not really she wasn't a working lady at the time. She actually stayed home, and she did odd jobs at times to help ends meet. But she wanted to make sure that her kids got up in the morning, got off to school with a meal on their stomach, and when they got home, she wanted to make sure that she was there and that we was doing what we needed to do. And as we got older, some of that responsibility fell upon my shoulders in terms of watching the house until she got home. And but she always made sure that we didn't have to want for anything. My pops made the same commitment. My grandfather made the same commitment to all of the grandkids, and they made sure that we had the right discipline. Made sure that we watched after each other's back, even in the streets. Don't let nobody touch your brother. If they do, both of y'all better be fighting that guy or that person. And if both of y'all get beat, then call me, then we're going to all fight them. So that's just the way it was. That's just the way it was. And so we've definitely felt love from both parents.
And I love the fact that you admit out here that a lot of the responsibility did fall on you. I mean, caring for your grandmother oftentimes fell to you. You're lifting her
most definitely
around.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is before home health care became home health care. And my grandfather would work shift yard work. He would work 9 to 7 or 7 to 11 and 3 to 11. And I would stay with my grandmother. She would call me in the middle of the night. I would get up, go grab a glass of water, come put a straw and let her drink some water, turn over her side, put pillows on the side so she can be comfortable. Even if I had to change her, I would do it.
And you're how old?
I was probably 8 or 9.
Man.
Yeah. But it taught me a very, very valuable lesson. At the time, I couldn't really understand it, Joe, because I was like, why me? Like most young kids are very selfish. Why me? Why I got to do this? But it taught me a very valuable lesson about helping others who are in need and who cannot help themselves, but just need a helping hand. So.
Beautiful. When did you first discover football?
Probably when I was 7, watching the game with my father and some
And you were a Cowboy fan back then.
Oh yeah. I was a kid. I mean, think about it. We only had like 3 stations back then: CBS, NBC, and if you had cable, you had TBS. You catch the Cowboys and the Redskins, the big rivalry games, the big primetime games on Sunday. Yeah, I was a big time Cowboy fan watching Roger Staubach and Dorsett and Drew Pearson and that team. Man, I just loved it. Beyond watching the game itself, my mother's nephews, Morris Beck, Edward Beck, Jerome, and Edward, and our cousins Tim and Jeffrey, my brother Eric and I, who you saw on the picture up there, we would play against the 2 youngest Beck boys, and they were older than Eric and I, but we would go over in the park, we would compete. The older brothers taught us how to do the 3-point stance, the 2-point stance, the 4-point stance, play outside linebacker, play quarterback, play tight end, wide receivers, defensive backs. They taught us all the game before we can actually get into uniform. There was a time where I could not go to sleep. I used to beg my mom and dad just to let me stay up and see the halftime highlights of Monday Night Football with Howard Cosell doing the calling. And I would cry if they wouldn't let me watch that. And so, learning how to play the game before I actually got in the uniform is where it all began.
Is it true that you did tell your dad at the age of 7 that you would play, not just in the NFL, but for the Dallas Cowboys?
the truth is, I told him I wanted to play professional football, and I wanted to play for the Dallas Cowboys. And that's what I told him when I was 7. And so, I mean, he looked at me like I was crazy. I mean, a 7-year-old kid talking about, that's pipe dreams.
You really matured fast. And when you do get into organized football,
right.
I would assume with your size and your strength, you were making headlines even back then.
I was okay.
I
was okay.
Don't be humble.
No.
It's called undeniable.
Yeah, okay.
Don't deny.
All right, let me just say this. When I was 10 years old, I was forced to play with 11 and 12-year-old kids because I weighed too much to play with the 9 and 10-year-old kids, so they forced me to go up. Hearing people in the stands talk about this kid that's 10 years old playing with 11 and 12-year-old kids and competing at their level gave me some kind of insight of what I was able to do.
To go back to your 8th grade year, you have to sit out football because you're too big.
Yeah.
You're sitting in a sauna.
No, I'm sitting in a car with a plastic
trash bag
along with a sweatshirt and some sweatpants, and the heat turned all the way up.
No.
I promise you. And the radio on listening to Alabama football.
And you're just trying to sweat out weight because you're 11, 12 years old, you're trying to make weight.
That's what you call sacrifice. Sacrificing to do the things that you truly want to do. And that's what people need to understand. If you really want something bad enough, are you willing to pay the price for it? And if you are, you would do whatever it takes to make that happen.
Part of the issue with the weight are the thighs, right? I mean, that's always been your calling card. And they were big early.
Thighs and ass, let me just say.
Okay.
It is what it is.
You go to Escambia High School, a football program that had not had a winning season in almost 2 decades.
Right.
And here comes Emmitt Smith.
So, as a true freshman in high school, I started varsity football. I never really practiced with the freshman squad. They put me right on varsity because all the guys that was on the varsity squad, a lot of us played against each other in Pop Warner football.
They knew.
They knew.
And it's that high school coach who wants you, I know individually, but guys on the team to write down their goals. Right? And he says, it's only a dream
till you write it down.
And
then it becomes a goal. And from that point on, I've always wrote down my goals. I write down my team goals first, what I want to see the team do. Then I write down my own individual goals second, because I believe team has to come before me. How I affect the team is what I do personally within the team format. And so that's why I'm second.
Do you remember what your goals were the first time you put pencil or pen to paper?
Well, the number one goal for the team, obviously, we didn't have to lose all those games that they were losing before.
Right.
But obviously, lead the team in rushing was always a goal. And rush for over 2,000 yards was always on there. Score 25 touchdowns in a season was always there. Win, go to state was there. And so those were just some of the personal goals. Staying healthy was there. Just doing and repeating it every year, wanting to do better the next year, do more. One of my goals I never achieved was to rush over 425 yards in one game and score 6 touchdowns. That never happened. But I got 316 yards and about 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But that did happen.
So you're setting goals that are way out there.
Yes.
Hoping to, if you get there, great.
I'm striving.
Right.
I'm striving to.
If you come short, you're still having a hell of a year.
That's my philosophy. If I come short, fine. As long as we're having a great year, we'll get it. Let's keep striving for the impossible. Never settle for something that's easily attainable.
And it took off pretty quick.
We turn it around. We go 7-3 my freshman year.
When I talked to Troy Aikman about Emmitt Smith, he said you can throw it all away and just know one thing. You don't accumulate that kind of yardage if you don't show up to play. And he was the most dependable guy that he had ever seen. Now, that starts even in high school. Your sophomore year, you sprain an ankle.
2. Not 1, but 2.
2.
And had to wear a cast in order to play.
You get taped up at halftime. You're mad that they're not putting you back in the game.
I'm hot. I'm livid. I mean, because we're playing Tallahassee Ricketts in the playoff, first round of the playoff in Tallahassee. And I have 2 badly sprained ankles. And they allowed Gerald Williams, whom I know and love very dearly, to be the running back. They converted him from a defensive back to running back, and he carried the football for about 3 or 4 quarters. And I'm on the sideline, itching to get in the game, just flinching, just mad because I can't play. And Dwight just holding me back, and I'm just getting mad. And I turned to Jim. I said, "Man, y'all got to put me in the game." And the game is so close. Real close. And I'm like, put me in. And finally they gave in and let me go in. And we end up winning the game in 4 overtimes. 4 overtimes.
Wow. And your team would then go on to win the state championship after
Right,
that.
but we would go on and play in Jacksonville the next week. And that game go into 7 overtimes.
Oh, my God.
7 overtimes. And then from there we go on and we cruise from that point on.
Your junior year, 2,918 yards.
Did that happen?
That happened. Pretty good, huh?
Not bad. Not bad.
And you go on to win the 4A state championship.
Yes, sir.
So this downtrodden program goes from good to state champ at 3A to state champ at 4A, handing you the ball. Your coach said, yeah, we had three parts of our offense. We would hand the ball to Emmett, we pitched the ball to Emmett, and we threw the ball to Emmett. That's what your high school did.
Well, he simplified it, but I had other players too. We went from a school that probably sent 1 or 2 kids to college to my junior year where we were sending 15 to 20 kids to college.
Play football.
To play football. My junior and senior year.
It's also in that time, I just find it ironic because it comes back around that you have Sweetness stitched into your Letterman's jacket.
Yeah.
Now, Sweetness was the nickname for the great Walter Payton.
Yes. They used to tell me I used to run like Walter. And so, I became a big fan of Walter at a young age. And then, I had people tell me I looked like him. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to become Sweetness too. So I became Sweetness.
So your dad's nickname's Puddin' and your name's Sweetness.
Yeah.
Those are the Smith boys.
Yeah, exactly.
What were you looking for in a college? Because you could have gone anywhere. By the time you're ready to walk out, you're the parade All-American, you're all U.S.
I wanted to go to an organization where I had a chance to play. And I felt like Florida gave me the best opportunity to play.
Around this time, though, you lose your grandmother, and you're now launching, now you're becoming a man, right? I mean, you're going off to college.
Right.
How hard was that to lose her?
It happened in Florida, like most states, they have the Super 25 football team, state of Florida versus state of Georgia, and I was on the state of Florida's team during this transition between high school and college. And while I was down there preparing to play in the game, I was asleep on the floor. Emmett, you need to come with us. And right when I woke up, I had a sense that something happened to my grandmother. I told you not to bring this up, man. And so I knew in my spirit that she had left. And all I wanted to do was get home because she was such a spiritual person. Right before I left to go to college, even right before I left to go down to the All-Star game, she gave me this Bible verse. And the Bible verse was pretty simple. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not onto your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. And I meditated on that word for so long. And everything that I did from that point on was all around that. Whenever I found myself in a situation, even going to Florida, and I'm competing for a job, and Florida only told me they had 5 running backs, but they ended up with 10. And I'm struggling to get in there because now I'm entering into this big-time program, and they're trying to break me down, trying to put weight on me. I would go to my room, and I would read, and I would meditate on it. And it was just one of those things where I told you not to do this.
So you go to Florida, they do the bait and switch on you. They tell you they got 5 running backs, all of a sudden there's 10.
Yeah.
We talked about goals and what you were doing in high school. What are your goals when you get to college?
Goals in college, obviously to start and to get over about 1,500 yards, being modest, and score about 20 touchdowns, average 125 yards a game, win games, and those are my goals.
Do you remember your first start?
Yes, I do.
It was a hell of a first start.
Yes, it was.
It looked like this.
Here's Smith leading the way. McGrady. Smith's gone. Touchdown, Florida. Emmitt Smith looking for 200 yards in his second touchdown. Look at the move to the 5. Oh my, Emmitt Smith. There you go, Emmitt Smith. He now holds the record for rushing by a freshman running back in Florida history.
And things are going about as well as they can go for you on the football field.
Yeah, maybe individually, yes, but not for the overall program. We kind of was in the middle of the road, 6-5, 7-4, nothing real, nothing really to be proud of.
So while the individual goals are being met, the first thing on your list, which are team goals, it's not
quite been met. And that was the disappointing part because while I was at the University of Florida, we cycled through 3 different offensive coordinators for 3 straight years. All 3 years I was there. So I never had a chance to really grow in offense and really become a complete football player like I wanted to become.
Your junior year rolls around. You have another great year individually. Your head coach resigns.
Yeah.
Steve Spurrier's on his way in.
Right.
And that just happens to be when they're allowing juniors to head to the NFL draft. And you've done all you can do at the University of Florida individually.
All right.
Did you have a sense of where you might go in the draft?
Didn't have a clue.
Was it first round, no doubt, or was it, I hope I'm in the first round?
Well, there was a lot of talk. Everybody speculate. Mel Kiper and everybody else speculate that he's a for sure first round draft pick, but I seen the for sure first round draft picks not get drafted at all.
And people, to be fair, were saying, well, he's too small. He's too small, he's not fast enough, he's not NFL ready.
I'm not, I don't have this, I don't have that. I don't have what it takes.
Jimmy Johnson, the great Jimmy Johnson, is coming off a 1-15 season with our friend Troy Aikman. And I know you wanted to be a Cowboy since you were 7, but they stunk at that time.
Not only did they stink, but I think they were sitting at the 22nd pick, in that draft. And so,
but now they make a move.
I didn't know whether or not I would go to them or not, but I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking the top 10 based off of what people were saying, and I was nervous. When I got that call from Jimmy, I was like, the Cowboys? Would I like to wear a star on my helmet? I'm like, heck yeah.
That was the question, right? Would you like to wear a star on your helmet?
How would you like to wear a star on your helmet? I'm like, Coach, I would love to wear a star on my helmet. You don't understand. I don't think that they truly understood how much I absolutely love the Dallas Cowboys.
Funny enough, you're rooming with Michael Irvin.
That's funny.
Correct. And he sees you writing down your goals. I mean, we talk about this stuff all the time on this show, but you're actually doing what your high school coach had taught you to do, because now it's not a dream, it's a goal. And your goal is to
become the all-time leading rusher as a rookie. And he looked at me and started laughing. Started laughing like this dude doesn't know what he just got into. And
because he'd been there.
Yeah, he has been there. Michael had been there. Matter of fact, he was coming off of a knee injury. And he had gone through a 1-15 season, so he knew the challenge that lied ahead of us.
Yeah.
And so I guess he was trying to give me a dose of reality. But for me, my reality was what it was. And I knew that I had a chance to affect it. The question becomes, how long will you be here? What kind of endurance do you actually have? And are you physically fit enough to endure the pounding that you have to go through to get there? My goals were to play 13 years in the National Football League. For the first time, I started thinking about a number of years I wanted to play.
Really?
For the first time ever, I started thinking about a number of years I wanted to play. I knew Peyton had played 13 years. I knew other running backs that played 12 or 13 years. And so 13 became a number for me to pursue after. He got it. He got 16,000 yards in 13 years. I wanted to do the same thing. And so that was part of the goal list. Winning Super Bowls was definitely part of the goal list. Becoming the MVP in the Super Bowl was part of the goal list. Winning multiple Super Bowls was part of the goal list. Leading the league in rushing was part of the goal list. Rushing for over 425 yards was still on the goal list. Rushing for 2,000 yards was on the goal list. All of those things was on the goal list. Having a successful team and a career, all that was on the goal list.
Here's the hard thing for you, though. It's like everybody's nightmare, no matter what you do for your line of work. You get kind of eased into the season the first couple of games.
Right.
How hard was that?
I think that's part of the process. I didn't really get eased in. Let me just show you how quickly it happened.
Okay.
I mean, I come in, I sign on a Tuesday. We played that Sunday against San Diego. Timmy Smith is a starting running back. I play a little bit. I don't play a whole lot. Monday rolls around, or Tuesday rolls around, they let Timmy Smith go. I'm the only running back left. So I start in the game. From that point on, I started. I didn't carry the ball a whole lot. I only averaged, early on in my career, it was like I was averaging 5 or 6 carries here or 12 carries there. It goes to show you how much we threw the football. And then all of a sudden, they decided they wanted to show me up. And we're playing against Tampa. They gave me some carries. I get 121 yards, score a couple touchdowns. We win the game. The philosophy changed from that point on, and I started getting into more.
You know, and it happens fast for you, too. You're the NFL's Offensive Rookie of the Year. You're the only Pro Bowler on that team.
At that time, yes.
At that time as a rookie in 1990. But it's really starting to change, and that next season is when a man named Norv Turner shows up.
Oh, my gosh.
And the world changes for Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, and the Dallas Cowboys in general.
Most definitely. Norv Turner came in with the West Coast style of offense, if you will, or the Eric Coryell offense, which was an offense, Joe, that was very similar to my high school offense. And it was pretty simple. The previous system was pretty complicated, but Norv simplified the system and gave everybody a chance to thrive in it. And to me, that is a mark of a tremendous coach that's taken advantage of the talent that he has around him.
But there's something you do that has kind of the feel of an artistry, too. I mean, people think of Emmitt Smith, they see the thighs, they think power back. But you were more than that. You knew when to hit it. You knew when to delay a beat. You knew... And when I talked to Troy, he said the first guy in the hole from the defense never brought down Emmitt Smith. You had the ability to break through that first level of tackling. That's what made you great.
I had the ability to process fairly quickly. And I think in doing such, it gave me a tremendous advantage. And what people classified as a disadvantage actually became my advantage, because I was small enough to where bigger guys could not get underneath me, but I could get underneath them. I was strong enough to where it hurt them more than it hurt me. And if it was one-on-one, then it becomes a chess game. I'm going to run through you this time. Next time, I may run through you again. The next time, I may sidestep you, may shuffle you, may make you get out of play, out of position, and utilize your leverage or your weight position against you. And my job is to make you so uncomfortable that you don't know what's coming next. And that was to my advantage.
In 1991, you end up edging Barry Sanders for the rushing title, but I think like 15 yards. You end up winning that rushing title. The accolades are starting to come, and now the team is starting to fill in.
Yes.
What was different about 92? What are the expectations going in?
The experience that we gained in Norv Turner's offense the first year, and the confidence that we gained within that offense, because we went to the playoff in his first year and got knocked out by Barry Sanders up in Detroit.
Right.
And so, but on that plane ride back, every man, even though it was a disappointing loss, every man kept saying, this won't happen next year. We're gonna do it next year.
It's funny, you're not the first person from that team to tell me that.
Well, if I'm not the first one, everyone's saying the same thing is because everyone believed that. They believed we had something very, very special. And we had an opportunity to do something very, very special. And everybody was passionate about where we were going. And when you got people buying into the same belief and nobody's been divisive, that's a powerful tool.
Was that Jimmy?
Jimmy set the atmosphere for us. But at the end of the day, Joe, we as individual players had to reside in the fact that we had to buy into something. And the success is in the pudding. When you have someone now that's leading the league in rushing and someone that's catching 80 to 100 passes, second year, I wasn't the only player that went to the Pro Bowl. Other players started going to the Pro Bowl. That says that you're doing the right things. And so when 92 rolled around, people's like, yeah, we got us a chance. And when you come back to the locker room or you come back for training and there's only 53 of us on the roster. And then there's 7 others. But when you come back and you start training, you start seeing 25 guys in the weight room out there running and conditioning together between 8 and 10 o'clock in the morning. That says a lot.
You guys go 13-3. And for NFL fans, that's the start of this great rivalry with the 49ers in the postseason. Right. I mean, man, that was fun as a fan to watch.
We were playing not only against some of the greatest Niners football players, but we were playing with history, too, at the same time. That legacy that was left, the star back and the catch and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And so now we're playing in the ultimate game, the one game that's going to set the ship right. The question becomes, are we the group to do it? Against Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, Steve Young, that great 49er team and great offensive players. Are we the group to do it?
Run with Smith. Smith with the touchdown. The Cowboys take the lead. Aikman to throw. Quickly to Smith, who's wide open. 10. Touchdown. And the Cowboys advance to the Super Bowl.
1992, you go to the Super Bowl. What is that like for this kid from Pensacola, Florida, who was playing in front of 15,000 in high school? Man.
Now, I'm going to put some stuff together again for you. We left this out. Now, we haven't talked about 87 when I'm a senior in high school and I'm named Gatorade Football Player of the Year. I was named Gatorade National Football Player of the Year, and I was afforded a trip to come to the Super Bowl out here in Pasadena against the Denver Broncos and the Giants.
Right.
So Jimmy Nicholson and I, my best friend John, we fly out for the game. We're sitting up in the stands watching that game, and Denver is getting their teeth kicked in by the Giants. And I'm sitting in the stands as a young football player, all hyped up, ready to go, want to get on the football field and play. And I turn to Johnny and I say, man, I want to play in the Super Bowl and I want to play right here. Right here. Fast forward 6 years later, we beat the Niners. We come to the Super Bowl 26 in Pasadena, California. And we're playing in the same stadium and Johnny Nick is sitting up there watching me. 6 years later. Two things are going to happen. We're either going to win or we're going to lose. All I know is I do not want to be on the losing side. And so it was so overwhelming. I did not realize how overwhelming it was until I started to warm up. Because my back got tight as if I was out of shape. Because the anxiety and the excitement of playing in your very first Super Bowl. Knowing it can go either way. And knowing that you don't want to be that guy that make that first mistake or make the mistake that cost your team.
3rd and goal from the 10 and a draw to Smith. And he's in. What a run. Oh, my. They go back to big day as Super Bowl champion. Dallas 52, Buffalo 17.
I see your chest pumping even here. What is that like to watch now? What did that feel like then?
I mean, it's indescribable, really, truly is, because I mean it's one of those exhilarating moments where any person could probably have experienced this, like a child on Christmas morning, getting your toys that you always wanted to have. That's not a toy. But that is a reward for all of the hard work and sacrifice that you put in for years to play in the game like that.
What'd your family, how'd they react?
Oh, they were at the game just loving the moment just as much as I was. I mean, I think for all of us, and what I appreciate the most is that they wasn't jealous of me. They wasn't envy of me. They allowed me to be their son. And their brothers and sisters. And they celebrated with me. We share in each other's success. And you don't see that often. It's always somebody jealous of another. Or you didn't do this and how come I couldn't do that? It's all that kind of stuff. But not with my brothers and sisters and my parents and my siblings.
So after that Super Bowl win, your rookie contract's up.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry Jones says publicly, well, Emmitt Smith is a luxury. He's not a necessity. We can win the Super Bowl without him. And you're holding out. You missed the first 2 games, and the Cowboys go 0-2.
You used the word holding out. Let's correct that word, okay?
Okay, you were kept out.
I was unemployed.
You were unemployed.
I was unemployed. And we can vouch for that, right? When you don't have a contract, that means you don't have a job. Right?
Okay.
So I did not have a contract, so I did not have a job. Some of the media folks like to say holding out. Holding out would mean if I had a contract and I refused to come in.
Okay.
So let's make that clear.
Okay, or I can be the media guy.
Let's just make that clear. I mean, for years, I had to live and had to correct that, but people always question whether or not I'm doing it because, no, it's just the right thing. It's the right thing that happened.
Okay.
I did not have a contract.
Let me finish then. Holding out for more money.
Negotiating for more money.
Okay, negotiating. Fair enough. Charles Haley, the team goes 0-2, and Charles Haley, who's one of the all-time great guys and crazy guys and intense guys, throws his helmet against the wall after the game and says, we better get Emmitt Smith in here right now.
And so, come out, get started, and, we go to Arizona, and Derek Lassick played the whole first half. They allowed me to play the third and fourth quarter, which was fine. And then after that, I started playing a little bit more.
The hardest thing to do is to ramp it all back up and do it again. Did you sense the same urgency, the same desire?
Yes. We wanted to do it again very badly. We really did. And we felt like we could. Once the pieces got back together, then I think everything was just rolling the way it needed to roll.
Remember that kid in high school that sprained both ankles and was hot on the sideline and got taped up and went in there and won the game?
Yeah.
Well, at the end of this season, you're in a game at the Meadowlands against the Giants.
Right.
It's an opportunity for your team to secure a first-round bye with a win. The Giants are fighting for their playoff lives, and you injure your shoulder in the game. How hurt were you?
It was on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, I probably was at an 8 or 9.
Did you put an extra pad in that shoulder pad?
The thought was put 2 knee pads together, cut a donut hole in the middle of it, tape it together and tape it to my shoulder so I would have room and space within the joint because I hurt my AC joint and my clavicle kind of popped up a little bit. And so I'm glad it didn't come through the skin, but it popped up a little bit.
You need to win this game, right?
That's the most important thing. We needed to win this game. And they started giving me the football. They started giving me the football. They started giving me the football.
You've referred to that game, though, as your best.
That's a defining moment in my career. And the reason why it's such a defining moment is because it happened in New York City, the media capital, and it happened under the circumstances that required us to win the game to secure home field advantage. But most importantly, it happened to a kid that's not big enough, not fast enough, not strong enough, but heart is bigger than you could possibly imagine. And mental toughness, the things that are required, the things that I learned when I had the 2 badly sprained ankles. When it was over, I was so relieved, but yet I was in so much pain. I didn't realize how bad it was. My shoulder was swollen up for almost 2 weeks. I couldn't even see my trap muscle for almost 7 to 8 days.
I haven't seen mine for 47 years.
You don't need yours. And so, I mean, I knew the things that were important. And so when you understand what's important, you do what you have to do. And that's the way I was raised. That's the way I was trained. And that's just my style. That's what it is.
So you end up back in the playoffs. You end up facing the 49ers again, and Jimmy Johnson guarantees a win.
I loved it.
You did? You relish that kind of stuff.
I loved it. I'm like, don't worry, Coach. We got your back. We have your back. And, I mean, we were a very confident team. And we had the better team. And we knew it because we had enough depth on our team that if we played to our best, we could compete against anybody in the National Football League, and they all knew it too.
You beat the 49ers. You make good on the guarantee of the win by Jimmy. You go back to the Super Bowl. Now here you are again. What's the experience like second time around compared to the Pasadena?
It's not quite like the first time.
Nothing's ever like the first time.
No, nothing is ever like that very first time. It's a little bit different, but it's still exciting. It's still exhilarating.
Feels a little more business-like?
A little bit more normal, a little bit more business-like.
So this game is tied.
Yeah.
At the half.
No, they're winning at the half.
So what changes in that game in that second half is Jimmy Johnson, Norv Turner, they start handing you the ball. 7 out of 8 plays in a row.
Yeah.
Here comes Emmett.
Well, they came to me, they came to the offensive line, and they said, we're going to get you the football. And the offensive linemen, all of them, once they said that, my boys like to run the football. Because you got to understand, my offensive linemen averaged about 310 pounds across the front. And sometimes offensive linemen get tired of pass blocking and people hitting them all the time. They like to fire off and hit others. And this particular game, at that time, they were ready. And so was I.
Aikman draw to Smith. Tackled but breaks away to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Emmitt Smith.
2 in a row.
2 in a row.
Back.
So you're the first to win the rushing title, the league MVP, and the Super Bowl MVP. First to do that. I I mean, that is a year. And think of how it started with you.
0-2.
You in a negotiation.
Yeah. And going 0-2. The team started at 0-2. Yeah. It was fun. I didn't think I would have a chance to lead the league in rushing again because I missed the first 2 games, and knowing Barry Sanders was going to run wild.
Are you aware of Barry? I know
Constantly.
everybody's aware of Barry, but the numbers and where you stack up against Barry Sanders.
That's my benchmark. He was my benchmark.
92, 93. You're thinking three-peat. It's never been done.
I thought it was a foregone conclusion.
But what you didn't know was less than 2 months later, Jimmy Johnson resigns.
Yeah. No, I didn't know that was going to happen. And
I know from talking to Troy, talking to Michael, it's always a game of what if. You know, you guys were that good.
Right.
And the what if game happens with regard to Jimmy Johnson. What if Jimmy and Jerry could have gotten along and coexisted? How many could we have won? Is that how you look back on it?
Yeah, I do. Could we have won 4 in a row? Perhaps. Perhaps. But I have to also look at myself. And I think we as players have to look at ourselves too, because we had the tools. Offense never changed. Offense stayed the same. Our defense stayed the same. Yes, our head coach had left, but our head coach had left us with a lot of great tools. How to be focused, how to work hard, how to compete, and that part was ingrained in us. That's what he left us with.
But 95 comes around, and there you are again.
Yeah.
I mean, Barry Switzer, head coach.
We took it upon ourselves. And that's what I mean by Jimmy left us some things that we should own now. He gave us enough of the tools to get us in a place to where we know how to train, we know how to compete, we know how to prepare.
But you got to do it yourselves.
Yes. That's
Right.
part of growing up. That's part of being a mature football player. That's part of being a professional football player. And I think at that point in 95, we started to own it. And once we owned it, we felt like we could do it. And that team went out and did it, in spite of who was the head coach.
And Emmitt Smith's first carry. 10. He's all the way to the 28-yard line. Touchdown. 27-17. Emmitt Smith held only 49 yards rushing today, but 2 touchdowns.
How did that feel?
It felt great because the prior year I was struggling with hamstring issues the whole entire year, but it was a great year. Led the league in rushing again.
You almost just use that as a given. I mean, another year, another rushing title. You helped turn this organization around from 1990 through the 95 season. You've got 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
But now the individual stuff is there. You said when you were a rookie, you wrote down on that piece of paper, I want to be the all-time leading rusher in the history of the NFL. And with all these rushing titles, is that now becoming a little bit more in sight for you as the numbers start to pile up?
Not quite, because I think at that time I'm probably over 10,000 yards or right at it, and it's still 6,000 yards away, which means at least if I'm averaging, 1,500 yards, probably 3 seasons away. But I'm getting older. Team is not as strong as we once were, and so it's still a ways off, and it's not quite as clear as it needs to be.
2002, you enter the season with the rushing title right there on the horizon. Take us through what it's like with that goal, the goal that you wrote down as a rookie and Michael Irvin laughed at, to be the all-time leading rusher in the NFL.
Well, going into the 2002 season, I really felt I had a chance to do it. For the first time, it really became real.
Until then, you...
Yeah, because it's still at that point, you still have to go through the process to get there. Because injury could come at any point in time, and no one knows. And I took one game at a time. And when that day came against Seattle, because I wanted to make sure that I had a chance to break it at that in Dallas. I was 96 yards away. And I said, this is it, because if I don't do it here, this day, we're going to be on the road for the next 2 weeks, and that's not going to be good.
Emmitt Smith needs 10 yards now to break Walter Payton's all-time record.
Hutchinson, handoff, Smith at left guard, 35, 40-yard line. That should do it. Move over, Sweetness. Make a place for Emmitt.
Yes, sir.
That was a family affair that day.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. There you go again.
What was that like, getting to the top of that mountain?
It was gratifying and it was sad at the same time, because I had gotten a chance to know Walter over the years, and he and I had spent some time together in Dallas. I met him for the first time in Dallas, and we were talking. We were at a Doak Walker Award event in Dallas, and I had a chance to really sit down and talk to a living legend and ask all of the pertinent questions that you want to ask of an individual that have gone places where you're trying to go. And we just had a candid conversation, and finally I said, who do you think will break your record? He says, there's 2 guys that I believe that have a chance to break my record. Barry Sanders is one, and you are the other one. I looked him square dead in his eyes. I said, I don't know what Barry wants, but I want your record. And he said, go get it. That was that. And when he passed, I think part of me passed along with him, but the sense of responsibility, a greater responsibility came upon me. And all I ever wanted to do was to not only break the record, but to make him proud in the process, because I never forget these words. Whoever break this record, they're going to bust their heart trying to get there. And I understand what it means. Not literally bust your heart, but you got to bust your behind, and you got to be blessed with great health and longevity to get there, and mental fortitude and humility. And so that day was a sweet day, because I had crossed over that torch, or that line of another level of mortality. I've traveled where no other man has gone. And that, for a kid that comes from Pensacola, Florida, that's not big enough, not fast enough, or strong enough, that's a powerful thing when you know God has touched you with the ability to do things that you have no idea, a clue of how you're going to get it done, but He has directed my path.
We have this quote on the wall: I'm an enigma, an unknown. You can't really figure out what I'm going to do next. I like it like that. This quote really fits you now more that we've sat here and talked. What does that quote mean to you?
It means that I'm always looking to better myself and to add something to my arsenal. And so I don't settle for what I just actually have, because I honestly believe there's more room for me to grow. I never forget the quote Dwight Thomas said. He told us that the day that you become satisfied is the day that the growing stops. And I don't ever want to stop growing. I want to remain hungry. I want to remain humble, but I want to remain intense and always in pursuit of something better.
How much did it kill you to not end your career on field as a Dallas Cowboy?
You know, I don't think it actually killed me in that regard. I think what it did for me by playing with the Arizona Cardinals, it made it crystal clear for me that my time has come and gone, that my love for the Cowboys and sports are the same, and I cannot do this if I'm not there.
What's next for you?
What's next for me? is to continue to run my full-service real estate company, my development company, as well as my construction company.
Here it is. All right. Here's the mysterious fun questions. Here's how we end. Would you rather lose all your phone contacts or lose $5,000?
$5,000.
We're a long way from Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah. I mean, with my contacts, I could probably make up another $5,000.
Would you rather sing like an opera star or cook like a 5-star gourmet chef?
Cook like a 5-star gourmet chef.
And I think the hardest hitting question that Emmitt Smith has been asked, not just today, but in his life, would you rather wrestle a giant hamster or a tiny rhinoceros?
Yeah, I go with a rhinoceros.
You go with a little tiny rhinoceros?
Yeah, why not?
It'd be kind of fun.
400-pound hamster could lay on me and hurt me.
The person that is sitting right here was a young man that grew up in Pensacola, Florida, and told his dad at the age of 7 that he was going to be not just in the NFL, but a Dallas Cowboy. This is a strong man and an inspiration, undeniable, Emmitt Smith.
Thank you. Enjoyed it, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
What's next for you? To continue the undeniable conversation, go online now for exclusive show content and even more from this interview.
Well, I've been in a lot of rooms where it's very clear I'm not supposed to be there. You know, like when you're at that party and someone say, hey, you know that band? And you want to go, yeah, of course I know that band. Say no. Tell me about them. So when you do that, you actually make a connection with the person. When you have the responsibility of telling someone's life story, you want to get things right. It's not about all of the things that you've done. What's next?
Where's my money?
Unfortunately, I don't have it. I can get you $10 million.
This microchip belongs to my employer. You're going to get it back.
The chip and the warehouse, they're connected. We work together to figure out who these people are.
If I do this, I get complete control. We hit the jackpot. $10 million.
You know she's going to kill you.
Good night and thank you.
You don't know me very well.
Rogue, all new, Wednesday at 9 on Audience.
Two Oregon ranchers must go back to prison for starting fires that burned on federal land.
They say that there was an armed standoff. That is a total lie.
They flat out told me these people are not going back to prison.
We're going to make a hard stand.
The militia say they're not ruling out violence if police try to remove them.
This is not 240 years ago. You cannot go to war against the federal government. Oh my God!
Something's seriously wrong in this country.
I played at a talent show. Harry was also in the talent show. My dad came and he said, you should jam with him. And I'm like, no, what? No. We just started writing. It took a long time to feel like we were doing something good that we could actually be proud of.
this is going to be an art theft?
It's not the frame's fault.
Do you remember the Art Frame Defense League?
Morning.
Yeah, how's it going? What happened here?
The owner gave me this note to give you. Said he couldn't stick around.
Is that so?
What, do you have a squash appointment? I need a drink someplace where I don't have to look at all these empty frames.
Give me a break. I definitely understand why they didn't take this one.
This asshole tell you when he was going to get around to talking to us?
The girl said she'd bring him in. That was consoling him.
You know, I am now starting to take a burn at you.
Over what?
Over you dispense information in drips and drabs like a leaky faucet.
The girl's name's Nikki Cameron. The owner's name's Noel Beller.
And Nikki Cameron is to Noel Beller what?
She stood here consoling him. Look, I was the first cop on the scene. I didn't think it was my place to do an interview.
Andy, on the subject of this beat-up door, enlighten me why it's smashed up on both sides. You know, the outside smashed up. We surmise that's the perpetrator's forcing entry.
Beating up the inside, maybe you already had access and you're screwing up and trying to misdirect.
I.e., maybe you're a novice, or you're a bonehead, or you're an amateur thief.
How many belts did it look like he was going to take this guy to even out?
I wouldn't see him on a bender.
So that's optimistic he'll be looking us up.
Yeah.
If anyone else returns here, try and persuade him to stay.
May I help you?
My wife is missing.
Detective Medavoy can see you. Detective Medavoy?
Yeah.
It's about a missing person.
Yvette Gunther, my wife. She didn't come home yesterday.
Well, let's go in here where we can all sit down. I didn't catch your name?
I'm Dwight Gunther.
Yeah, that's my partner, Detective Jones.
My wife had a ticket to fly to St. Augustine yesterday afternoon, non-refundable. She was packed and ready, and she went out to run some errands. I went to work, and I phoned her from the office and left a message for her to call me before she left for the airport, but she never called. Then when I came home last night, her luggage and the ticket was still there. There wasn't any sign she'd ever come back.
Huh?
Yeah, she's 53, 5'2". Here's a picture and a description. I ran these off in the Kinko's. I posted some in our neighborhood.
So you were very active before coming in?
Your wife got any kind of medical condition, Mr. Gunther?
No.
Were you and her having domestic problems?
Maybe I got on her nerves a little, but that's how it goes when you've been married 30 years. You know, maybe I'm a little sloppy, or I'm late, or I'm a procrastinator, or whatever the complaint of the day is. But we didn't have any big blow-up or anything. She's never done anything like this before.
What kind of errands was she going to run before she left for the airport?
I didn't ask.
And what was the trip to St. Augustine for?
To put our vacation house on the market. She was going to pack up our things.
Did your wife ever talk about doing away with herself?
Not to me.
What kind of work you in, Mr. Gunther?
I have a small manufacturing company over in Brooklyn We make lampshades.
You got any enemies in the business world?
Not to my knowledge.
Is there a chance that your wife could have been involved with someone else?
I'd say no. Though I suppose it's always a possibility.
Well, we'll certainly put this in the hands of missing persons, and we'll open a file on it ourselves based on this thorough information you've provided with these flyers from Kinko's.
All right.
And, of course, we'll all hope for the best.
Thank you. Shall I show myself out?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I think we now know, Baldwin, how a male resident of Mars would report his wife missing.
This is where we're going?
Sit there, no.
My heart is going like crazy.
Just sit down.
Can I help you?
I'm Nikki Cameron. I'm a friend of Mr. Beller's.
I'm so sorry about your collection.
It's very considerate of you to say.
Detective, this is Mr. Beller.
How's it going? How's it going?
Mr. Beller's art collection was stolen.
I know. It's my case. If it's your case and you know that the collection's been stolen, why in heaven's name would you ask me, how are things going?
Either you has a gun, feel free to shoot me. I meant it like, hello.
Thank you.
My partner, Danny Sorensen, don't ask how it's going.
Hi.
Mr. Beller, who had his art collection stolen.
What did you say?
Not that you had it stolen. This is going to be a pip. Who would you be?
I'm Nikki Cameron. I've been visiting Mr. Beller.
Where are you in from?
Santa Monica, California. Actually, I'd been preparing an article on Mr. Beller's collection.
You might call it Objet Collected with Love, and I'd like to think some amount of discernment gone forever from Noel Beller's possession.
Don't you take a defeatist tone.
What all did you lose? Off the top of my head, what all I lost was a Mondrian appraised at $4 million 7 years ago.
With the Araviste internet money bloating the market, it would bring 3 times that today.
Yeah, well, evidently not to me. And I also lost an Arthur Dove watercolor and a Stuart Davis gouache and some Giacometti drawings.
Thank God, at least they're all insured. Not that that can compensate for the emotional devastation.
These are things I've had for a very long time. I also lost all my jewelry. Diamond ring, diamond cufflinks. All of it's going to just end up in some pawn shop.
Keeping some drug addict and heroin.
Your door locks when you go out.
Of course. You could see where the burglar pushed the door open. You could see the damage he did.
Yeah, somebody beat the door all right. Who else has keys?
No one. I live alone.
Well, you got a set for friends?
No, nor do Mr. Beller's friends take that amiss.
My cousin moved to Europe about a year ago. He had a set.
We'll need that name.
He would never do something like this.
This is Evan?
Just don't make it sound like I was accusing him. His name is Evan Sibley, and I'll get you his phone number in Paris.
Evan committing a burglary, that's completely impossible.
Anyone angry at you?
Only those I choose to be disagreeable to.
Business disputes with anyone?
Mr. Beller doesn't have any business to be disputatious about.
What do you do with yourself?
I have my interests, little routines.
Any photos of these artworks?
Photographs were taken for the insurance policy.
Did you bring those in?
I'm adult. I'm incapable right now of a cogent act.
I'll see that you get the photos and a list of Mr. Beller's personal possessions that were taken.
Good. Thanks very much. Miss Cameron, are you staying at Mr. Beller's place?
No, the Essex house.
Alone?
Yes. Why?
Just to make sure the room's in your name. Anyways, our job's got task force detectives that specialize in this type of crime. We'll be working with them, and obviously we'll be staying in touch with you.
All right.
Sorry you lost all your art.
You might have commiserated by offering me some sort of beverage.
You want a beverage?
No, not now.
How about a couple liquid Drano?
That wouldn't be the first toxic chemical he's ingested today.
The Mondrian's not one I like, but it's worth a lot of money. Dove's a minor piece, Davis is a minor piece. Giacometti drawings are decent.
Someone had keys to this guy's place.
Yeah, huh?
Knocked off the doorknobs to make it look like a break-in, but it was the inside doorknob they banged around.
Real pros.
What do you know about this Beller?
He's a social-type douchebag. You see him in party photos in them society magazines.
Ever hear he's got money problems?
Yeah, he's supposed to be loaded. I think his grandfather made toilet bowls or something.
You'll notify the guilds what got stolen?
And the FBI and Interpol. And I have ears with a few criminal receivers.
Thanks a lot for coming in, Wally.
Took weight off, didn't you?
A few pounds.
My vacation, I'm going on a ruthless exercise and diet regime.
There you go.
When's that coming up?
June 14th, pal. 10 weeks and counting. Why?
Oh, nothing. I just thought you might want to go for income tax day.
Where you hit 35 and your metabolism slows down.
Wally can't see 35 no more in his rearview mirror.
You know when people start to diet when their stomachs stick out farther than their dicky do. This cousin that had a set of keys to the place.
Evan Sibley.
That Beller thinks is in Paris. We call his number there. 2-week-old message on the answer.